Let's not beat around the bush. This wasn't just a bad call. This wasn't a slight misstep. This wasn't an oops moment in a 17-game season. This was the moment. The turning point. The point of no return. Jimmy Haslam benched Shedeur Sanders. And ever since, the walls around the Cleveland Browns have been shaking like they're about to collapse under their own cursed legacy. And you know what? Maybe they should. Because what's happening right now in Cleveland isn't just a quarterback controversy, it's a football tragedy in the making.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
An arrogant, avoidable, self-inflicted catastrophe that every football fan across the country saw coming, except the people calling the shots inside the Browns front office. It's not even about Shedeur Sanders anymore. It's about what he represents. A chance at redemption. A generational talent. A quarterback who didn't just bring a skill set, he brought a pulse. A spark. A sense of purpose that had been missing from the Browns for years. And what did the organization do? They doused it. They benched the future because they were too scared to let go of the past. Because they couldn't get over their addiction to safe, to structure, to stability, even though that same stability has led them nowhere for 2 decades straight. Shedeur Sanders showed up ready to change the culture. Jimmy Haslam showed up ready to protect it. And now the franchise is falling apart from the inside out. Let's talk about the karma part. The instant part. Because you could literally feel the shift the moment Shedeur got benched. It was like the air got sucked out of the season. Fans went from excited to confused, confused to angry, angry to furious, in real time. Week after week, the stands have been quieter, emptier, colder, even as the city of Cleveland screams louder than ever. And while the Browns tried to sell this as a developmental move, the fans knew better. They watched the film. They saw Shedeur in preseason. They heard the whispers from the locker room. They felt the electricity every time he took the field. And when Stefanski and Haslam pulled the plug, they didn't just kill the quarterback battle, they killed the momentum. They told the fanbase, we don't trust the new. We're sticking with what's familiar. But here's the plot twist. What's familiar in Cleveland never works. And now karma is cashing in, hard. Let's start with the fanbase. These aren't your average fans. Browns fans are a special breed. Loyal to a fault. Passionate beyond reason. These are people who sat through 0 to 16. Who memorized lists of failed quarterbacks like they were top 40 hits. Who kept believing when belief was a joke to everyone else. So when Shedeur showed up, it felt different. This wasn't hype. This wasn't false hope. It was real. And when they benched him, it didn't just sting. It cut deep. So the fans fought back. And not quietly. They started protests outside the facility. They organized boycotts. They posted signs in the stadium that read, "Let him play," and "Bench Haslam, not Sanders." Some even wore paper bags over their heads, because the shame? It's back. And it's louder than ever. And look, it's not just noise. It's energy. It's unrest. It's a city saying, you don't get to do this to us again. And while Haslam hides behind polished statements and Stefanski mumbles about quarterback decisions, the damage is done. The locker room? It's fractured. Fractured in ways that can't be undone with a players-only meeting or a forced team dinner. You've got the young guys, the ones who've trained alongside Shedeur, who've seen what he brings, watching him sit behind a guy who throws 150 yards a game and calls it progress. You think they don't notice? You think they're not texting each other after games saying, if he's not starting now, what does that say about our future? And the vets? They're just trying to survive another Browns implosion without being caught in the crossfire. You can feel the tension every time they get asked about leadership or locker room chemistry. They know. Everyone knows. This isn't just dysfunction, it's mismanagement with a spotlight on it. And then there's Shedeur himself. The eye of the storm. Calm. Silent. Controlled. He's not ranting in the media. He's not liking shady tweets. He's not demanding a trade. No, he's doing something even more dangerous to Cleveland. He's waiting. Because silence in this case isn't surrender. It's strategy. Shedeur Sanders is watching Jimmy Haslam dig his own grave with every press conference. Every half-hearted explanation. Every week that passes where the other guy starts and the Browns lose again. He's watching the chaos grow around him, knowing that the minute he steps in, it all changes. But that moment? It's no longer guaranteed. Because here's the part that should terrify the Browns more than anything. Shedeur has options. His value isn't tied to Cleveland. His talent isn't local. His future isn't locked down. And the second the season ends, or the moment the right call comes in, there's going to be a line of teams offering him more than just a starting job. They're going to offer him respect. They're going to offer him the thing Cleveland refused to give him when it mattered most: belief. And when he walks away, when he takes that talent and that leadership and that fire to another franchise, there will be no spin that saves the Browns from the fallout. Because you can only gaslight a fan base for so long. You can only ignore your locker room for so long. You can only bench the future for so long before the present falls apart completely. And now, that's exactly what's happening. The Browns are collapsing under the weight of their own fear. Not because they didn't have talent. Not because they didn't have a shot. But because the people in charge were too afraid to hand the keys to someone who earned them. So now karma's calling. And it's not knocking. It's breaking down the door. Every loss. Every fan protest. Every media segment roasting the franchise. Every single second Shedeur Sanders sits on that bench. It's all a receipt. A glaring, painful reminder of the moment Cleveland looked at the answer to all its problems and said, no thanks. So now we wait. Because one of two things is going to happen. Option 1. Jimmy Haslam swallows his pride, fires Stefanski, and makes the boldest move of his career by building the franchise around Shedeur, before it's too late. Or Option 2. He keeps playing scared, keeps losing fans, keeps watching the locker room fracture, until Shedeur walks and Cleveland becomes a cautionary tale all over again. Again. We've seen this movie. We know how it ends. But for once, just once, Cleveland has a chance to rewrite the script. The question is, will they? Because Shedeur's not waiting forever. And karma? It's not leaving anytime soon. Cleveland isn't just losing games. It's losing its identity. Scratch that, what identity? Because right now the Browns don't stand for grit. They don't stand for heart. They don't stand for comeback stories or underdog magic or even good old-fashioned football fundamentals. They stand for fear. Fear of change. Fear of youth. Fear of being wrong. And nobody represents that fear more than Jimmy Haslam, the man who looked at the most dynamic rookie quarterback to hit the city since, well, ever, and said, let's not rock the boat. Only problem? The boat is already sinking. And at the center of it all is Shedeur Sanders, still standing, still silent, and somehow, still showing up like this franchise hasn't tried everything short of gaslighting him into irrelevance. Let's rewind. Just a few months ago the hype was real. The city was buzzing. You could feel it. That rare, fleeting thing Cleveland fans don't throw around lightly, hope. Shedeur came in with swagger, sure. But it wasn't ego, it was purpose. It was poise. It was, let's change this narrative for real this time. And people bought in. Fast. They didn't just want Shedeur to succeed, they needed it. Because this city has been dragged through the dirt by a carousel of franchise QBs, who came and went like bad Tinder dates. Brady Quinn. Brandon Weeden. Johnny Manziel. Deshaun Watson. Baker Mayfield. The list doesn't stop, it just gets sadder. So when Shedeur Sanders showed up, composed, talented, marketable, magnetic, it wasn't just exciting. It was healing. Finally, someone who gets it. Finally, someone who wants it. Finally, someone who doesn't look scared of the moment. But instead of riding that wave, instead of embracing the rare opportunity to build something new, Jimmy Haslam and Kevin Stefanski took one look at it and said, let's wait. Wait for what? For the locker room to fracture completely? For fans to stop showing up? For the 2-5 record to magically correct itself without your most talented player touching the field? Here's the thing, in the NFL windows are short. You don't wait your way into greatness. You take it. You grab it by the face mask and run. And Shedeur is ready to run. But instead of giving him the ball, they're putting him in timeout. You don't have to be an analyst to see what's going wrong here. The tape doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. The locker room chemistry doesn't lie. And the silence from Shedeur's camp? That definitely doesn't lie. He's waiting. He's watching. He's giving this franchise one last shot to stop playing scared and start playing smart. And every week they don't? They're not just benching a quarterback. They're burning a bridge. A bridge that, once it's gone, doesn't get rebuilt. Because here's where we need to get real. Shedeur doesn't need Cleveland. Not even a little. This isn't 2005. This isn't be grateful for any opportunity football. Shedeur is a brand. A movement. A player raised in the age of player empowerment, mentored by one of the greatest athletes of all time and forged in the flames of pressure. He's got options. He's got suitors. He's got leverage. And if you think he's not already being scouted by half the league behind closed doors, think again. There are franchises watching this disaster in Cleveland like it's a free agent buffet. Because they know. They know what Shedeur brings. They know what it looks like when you put the right quarterback in the right system with the right support. They know what a future franchise player looks like, and they're salivating watching Cleveland screw it up in real time. Teams like the Dolphins, the Jets, the Raiders, the Cowboys, they've got ownership that moves. They don't sit around waiting for things to happen. They make things happen. And if Cleveland doesn't wake up, if Haslam and Stefanski don't make the bold call, if they let another loss, another broken drive, another wasted Sunday pass them by, Shedeur's gone. And not with fireworks or fanfare. Just a contract. Just a headline. Just a very cold, very permanent goodbye. And when that happens, when Cleveland is once again stuck cycling through emergency quarterback solutions, trying to rebuild from scratch again, they'll realize what they had. They'll realize they didn't just lose a quarterback. They lost the guy, the leader, the unifier, the one player who could have made Cleveland feel like a contender again. And when he's wearing another jersey, when he's throwing touchdowns in prime time for a team that believed in him from day one, the only thing the Browns will have left is regret. And look, maybe they think they can fix it later. Maybe they think we'll play him eventually, is a strategy. But newsflash, you don't keep asking the future to wait its turn. The NFL doesn't reward patience. It rewards impact. You think Mahomes waited around for someone to give him a chance? You think Lamar Jackson begged for a starting role? You think Jalen Hurts didn't feel every ounce of doubt and use it to fuel a franchise? No. They earned it. They seized it. And their teams were smart enough to get out of the way. Cleveland? Cleveland's standing in its own path, holding up a stop sign like it's protecting something valuable. But they're not protecting anything. They're stalling. And every second they wait, every game they lose, every fan they alienate, they're telling on themselves. They're showing us they'd rather be right than successful. They'd rather double down than grow up. They'd rather lose comfortably than win uncomfortably. And in the NFL? That's how dynasties die before they're born. So here's your moment, Jimmy Haslam. Make the call. Fire the coach. Bench the safe pick. Start the revolution. Because Shedeur Sanders is ready. He's waiting for the green light. The fans are begging for it. And karma? Oh, karma's pacing the sidelines waiting for your next move. You don't get many second chances in this league. Don't blow this one. Because if you do, this won't be a rebuild. This will be ruins. And Shedeur? He'll be the star you let walk out the door. Your future wearing someone else's colors, holding someone else's trophy. Because you were too afraid to give him the ball. Tick-tock, Cleveland. The clock is almost out. Because what's happening in Cleveland is no longer just a quarterback drama. This has become a referendum on leadership, loyalty, and whether or not this franchise has the backbone to do what needs to be done. And make no mistake, everybody's watching. Other teams. Other players. The media. Even the league itself is squinting at this mess, wondering how long the Browns can keep pretending this is part of the plan before the whole thing goes nuclear. And in the middle of this unraveling circus is Shedeur Sanders, standing on the sideline like a diamond buried in a pile of laundry. How many more weeks will fans have to sit through soul-sucking pressers from Kevin Stefanski? How many more games will the Browns lose by a touchdown or less, while their most talented offensive player watches from the sidelines with his helmet in hand? How many more excuses can Jimmy Haslam cook up before even the most loyal fans throw their hands in the air and say, "We're cursed. Let's just lean into it"? You know what the most ironic part of all this is? They had a way out. They had their out. Their moment. Their miracle. Their reset button. It wasn't theoretical. It wasn't in the future. It wasn't buried on a draft board or hidden behind some player development chart. It was Shedeur. Right there. In the building. Side. Practicing. Ready. And they chose not to use him. You could hear the collective gasp across the city when they benched him after his first few flashes in preseason. The throws were crisp. The decision-making was solid. The leadership? Instant. But what did we hear? He needs time. We don't want to rush him. He's the quarterback of the future. What future exactly? Because the present is imploding. The Browns don't have the luxury of waiting. They don't have the standing. They don't have the wins, the culture, the pedigree. They've been rebuilding since before some of these rookies were born. They can't afford to keep acting like they're a quarterback factory with a long leash. This franchise is starving. And Shedeur Sanders was the steak dinner. Instead, they served the fans stale leftovers and called it experience. Meanwhile, other teams around the league are running full speed into the future, starting young QBs, building around them, trusting their instincts, trusting their talent. You think Houston regrets starting C.J. Stroud early? You think Baltimore ever apologized for turning Lamar Jackson loose before the timeline said it was time? Of course not. They built around them. They gave them trust. And those players rewarded it. But the Browns? They're clinging to an ancient rulebook that hasn't brought them a meaningful postseason moment since flip phones were still in style. And now, the pressure is cracking the walls. You've got veterans side-eyeing coaches. Players going off-script in post-game interviews. Fans chanting Shedeur's name louder than the actual in-game commentary. Even local radio hosts are turning. People who built careers sugarcoating every miserable Browns season are now going scorched earth because the situation has gone from frustrating to flat-out delusional. And through it all, Haslam is still trying to spin this like there's some 4D chess happening behind the scenes. But we all see it for what it is, fear. They're afraid that if they start Shedeur and he balls out, it's going to expose everything wrong with their coaching staff, their decision-making, and their entire process. Because it means admitting they were wrong. And in the NFL, ego is the final boss. They'd rather lose their season than lose face. But here's what they're underestimating. The city of Cleveland is done with ego. They've been patient for years. They've defended bad calls, cheered for worse quarterbacks, and sat through freezing games in the name of loyalty. But this is betrayal. Because Shedeur isn't just another QB prospect. He's not a project. He's not a placeholder. He's a statement. Starting him would say, "We hear you." It would say, "We want to win." It would say, "We're ready to change." And right now, none of those things are being said. Instead, the Browns are playing hide and seek with their own future. And the clock is ticking louder than ever. Let's be brutally honest here. If Shedeur walks, if he ends up with the Jets, the Dolphins, the Raiders, or worse, the Ravens, that's not just a loss. That's an organizational death blow. You'll never recover from it. Not in this decade. Not in this era. Because the fans won't forgive it. Not this time. They forgave 0-16. They forgave the jersey with 30 quarterbacks' names. They even forgave the Deshaun Watson debacle, for a while. But this? Letting a generational, homegrown, culture-shifting player rot on the bench and then walk out the door? That's unforgivable. That's the kind of scar that stays on a franchise forever. You don't recover from that. You become the cautionary tale. Every draft analyst in the future will use your team as the example of what not to do. Every rookie quarterback will side-eye your franchise like it's career suicide. Every fan who stuck by your side for decades will finally say, enough. And what's left? A stadium half full. A roster half committed. And a city with a heart broken one too many times. And meanwhile, Shedeur will be out there, lighting up primetime, taking teams to the playoffs, smiling into cameras that once belonged to you. And you'll remember what it felt like when he was still in your building, still suited up in brown and orange, still waiting for you to stop overthinking it and let him play. That window? It's closing. And once it slams shut, it doesn't open again. So here's your final moment, Cleveland. We've passed the boiling point. The excuses are over. The fans aren't just disappointed anymore, they're done. There is one path left to redemption. Start Shedeur. Give the city its shot. Give the locker room its leader. Give the fans a reason to believe. Not tomorrow. Not next week. No. Because if you don't, then karma won't just hit Jimmy Haslam again, it'll finish what it started. And when the smoke clears, all that'll be left is a franchise wondering why the city it once had in the palm of its hands finally let go. And this time, they won't come back. That eerie, hollow echo of an empty stadium. The kind where you can hear every dropped pass, every awkward third down play call, every boo that trickles in like a reminder of what used to be hope. Cleveland's not a fair-weather town. It's a fighter town. These fans have stood through wind, snow, heartbreak, and humiliation. But even fighters have limits. Even the toughest loyalists eventually get tired of bleeding for a team that refuses to fight for them. And Jimmy Haslam? He doesn't get it. He thinks this is just noise. He thinks fans will cool off, things will stabilize, and everything will go back to normal if they can just control the narrative. But what he doesn't understand, what he never understood, is that the narrative is already gone. You can't bench a rising star like Shedeur Sanders, ignore the backlash, double down on bad decisions, and expect the public to move on. That's not how this works. Especially not now. Not when Shedeur's name is lighting up sports talk shows. Not when he's trending on social media without saying a single word. Not when players from other teams are casually posting fire emojis under his workout clips. You think that's random? That's the league talking back. That's the football world recognizing what the Browns are trying to suppress. And that silence from Shedeur? It's not submission. It's power. The calm before the storm. The silence of a man who knows the next time he speaks, whether through a highlight reel or a trade announcement, it's going to be devastating. Because here's what Jimmy Haslam forgot. Stars don't need permission. They don't wait for someone to tell them it's their time. They take it. And Shedeur is poised, perfectly poised, to take everything Cleveland failed to give him and turn it into a career-defining firestorm. And when that happens, when the rest of the league gets to see what Browns fans only caught flashes of, there won't be sympathy. There won't be forgiveness. There will only be that cold, undeniable realization. They had him. He was right there. Ready. Willing. Destined. And they let him rot on the bench. For what? For comfort? For control? For the illusion of process? Well, the process just blew up in their faces. And karma? Karma's wearing cleats now. So the Browns have one last snap to get this right. Start Shedeur. Fix the culture. Save the story. Or watch him walk out the door and never look back.